welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome to today's episode.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's Laura-sode. So Laura.
Yes, Jill?
Where in the world are we?
We're in America.
Okay, and what is the name of your episode?
Well, it's more of a question.
Oh.
Tragedy or murder?
So you're asking if it was a tragedy?
Yes.
Or if it's a murder?
Like, I'll be asking what you think. Was it a tragedy or was it a murder?
Okay, do I dive in?
Let's dive in. So this should have been one of the happiest moments of their lives, enjoying their honeymoon. But sadly, for this couple, it ended up in tragedy. Or was it something more sinister? So let me introduce the couple. So there was Lewis Bennett, who was originally from Dorset in England.
We have family from there.
Yes, we do. Not this guy though, thankfully.
Well, I just thought because he's American, it's an American case, so that's quite far away.
Yes, he's not from America.
Right.
Actually, neither was she. Anyway. So Lewis Bennett, who was originally from Dorset, England, he was a mining engineer by trade, but he was also an experienced sailor, and he had dual citizenship with the UK and Australia. So he was quite a well-travelled man. Like, he obviously went around quite a lot. So then there was Isabella Hellman, and she had been born in Cuba, but she lived in America now, and she was now a citizen. She worked as a real estate agent in Delray Beach in Florida, and she owned a condo there.
Right.
So that's where she lived. So they met through an online dating site, which seems to be the way of the world these days.
Yeah.
I couldn't do an online dating site. I'm quite glad I'm not lived through that, because the guy at my work, sorry to go off topic a bit, but he's like in his 40s, and he's like, oh, I've been like trying out this like dating website and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, good luck to you then, because like, no thanks.
Everybody does it now though.
Yeah, I know. And the fact there was actually a girl at work who she's in her early 20s, and she was on an online dating site, and she was like, this guy sent her a picture of him in like, I think he had like women's stockings on and that, and she's like, yeah, I'll just not be meeting up with him, because she just didn't, like, that's not the kind of person that she was looking for, and I just...
Oh yeah, I mean, like, if that's what you're into,
there's nothing wrong with that, but she was like, yeah, she's not the kind of person I was looking for.
Should you not check first? Like, if he wants to send pictures like that, should he not say... Should they not get to know each other first and see what each other's into?
Because I kind of feel like he played these cards quite early, like going, which is fair enough, because maybe he wants to be upfront about it. But
he could have said first.
Yeah, but she was just like, yeah, that's just not what I'm looking for. So
he could have said, this is what I like. Is this something you would like to see?
Yeah.
And then if she says no, he'd be like, okay then, I'll go and speak to somebody else then.
Exactly.
It's just manners.
I know. But
that's what people should do. Do you want to see me wearing stockings? Do you want to see my dick?
Yeah.
Whatever. Just ask, be polite.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, not for me.
Well, I would hope not, you're married.
Well, exactly. I mean, well, yeah, I'm glad. So anyway, they met in 2015, and their relationship clearly developed at quite a rapid speed, as by July 2016, they'd welcomed their daughter, Amelia, who, of course, was the centre of their world.
Yeah.
So in February 2017, the couple decided to get married. They couldn't head straight off on a honeymoon. I'm not sure why. So they had planned it for 3 months later.
Alright.
Now, I said earlier that Lewis was an experienced sailor, so he actually had his own catamaran.
Ooh.
I know, I was like, fancy. And that was called the Surf of Summer.
Right.
So the couple planned to sail to St. Martin in Puerto Rico and Cuba for their honeymoon, which sounds lovely.
Lovely.
I mean, how the other half live, having a catamaran, getting to sail off. I thought, well, that sounds quite nice. So,
where did you go on your honeymoon?
Dubai.
Oh, that's what you did. You went to Dubai. Where did I go?
Gran Canaria.
Oh, Gran Canaria. We're not very fancy, are we?
No, I thought Dubai was alright. I mean, it's quite...
Everybody goes there now, though.
Oh, yeah, now they do. But I didn't realise it was such a big destination when I went. I'd known of a couple of people, but...
All the influencers and all that go there now.
No, it's the place to go now. But yeah, I did go there. It was good. So I'm assuming that the honeymoon had went not too bad, like quite smoothly, no really too many hiccups.
Well, I'll talk so about your honeymoon.
Yeah. As on the morning of the 14th of May, their trip was obviously coming to an end. You know, they were must have been the last couple of days. And Isabella used the boat's satellite phone to call home to her sister, because I think it was like her sister and her mum that was looking after Amelia, their daughter.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So she called home, and they had just set off from Veradero in Cuba, and they were heading back to the Florida coast. And of course, Isabella was looking forward to seeing her daughter. You know, she'd obviously lost them, so I think she was just phoning just to we're on our way back. You know, blah blah. Looking forward to seeing Amelia. So that was that. So, but a day later, on the morning of the 15th of May at about 1 a.m, the US Coast Guard actually received an emergency position indicating radio beacon and a personal locator beacon. So it must be like a call or signal that they got, which was approximately 26 nautical miles west of Bank in the Bahamas. And the distress calls were coming from Lewis Bennett. So apparently the Surfer Summer had ran into some trouble. It had struck an unknown object in the dark, and it had taken on water very rapidly. So when the Coast Guard arrived, they found Lewis in a life raft.
You'll need to continue on your personal device.
What?
Sorry,
I don't know what.
Laura's watch just talked to her there.
It does that quite a lot when I'm doing stuff. I don't know why. It's annoying. Sorry. So
your phone's lit up as well. Or is that something different?
Oh, it's just Siri as well. I don't know.
Alright.
God knows. I don't know what's happened there. Anyway.
And that's why we've got a rid of Alexa in this room.
I know. Maybe I should leave my phone out of the room as well. So as I said, so Lewis was found in a life raft floating on the water where he had been sending the distress calls from, and the catamaran was sort of submerged near where he was.
Because I tipped on.
Yeah. But where was Isabella?
Yeah.
She was nowhere to be found, so what had happened to her? Like, was she okay? Like, where was she? So it had taken the Coast Guard around 3 hours to locate and airlift Lewis to safety. So at this point it had been hours since Isabella had last been seen alive.
So you'd be thinking the worst.
So of course, yeah. You're going to be thinking the worst, especially when it's on water.
Yeah, of course.
So once Lewis was given the all clear, he gave his account of what happened. So he said that he had gone to the cabin to sleep after dinner, which was apparently around 8 p.m, and he had left Isabella at the helm. He said that then he was woken up as the boat struck something, and it caused the boat to rock and take on some water, which flooded the inside. So of course he was startled. He got up and he went up to the top deck. But he said that Isabella wasn't there. So he reckons that maybe she had been thrown overboard when the boat had struck something.
Okay.
But clearly Lewis didn't take long to decide his next move, because he literally, obviously went up, and I personally don't think he spent enough time looking around to see where Isabella was or could be before he deployed his life raft and abandoned the ship.
So he just assumed that she went overboard and he just got himself to safety.
Yeah. That's what it sounded like to me anyway. So if Isabella was indeed in the water, then of course, they would have probably needed to locate her in the first few hours for any chance of survival. So as they had already taken a few hours to actually get to the location as it was and rescue Lewis, the chances were probably already pretty slim of finding her and finding her alive. So the Coast Guard did search thousands of square miles of water, hoping to find Isabella. Lewis had said that his wife was wearing a life jacket at the time that he last saw her. So that did give him a bit of hope, because I thought, if she was in the water, at least she might not have drowned. She would have been afloat somewhere. But of course they only had to go on what Lewis was saying, so they couldn't 100% say that she had a life jacket on. They didn't know. I mean, that's only what he had said.
And what he said was the last time that he saw her.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, that could have not been the case. Or, I don't know. But that's what they had to go on. So, as they were searching for Isabella, obviously they'd found the wreckage of the Surfer Summer, which by this time it had been fully submerged. So it hadn't sunk, but it was fully submerged in the water. So it was still floating.
It wasn't right down.
It wasn't right down. I mean, obviously it was obviously capsized, I guess, and you could see, because I've actually seen pictures of it. So it was submerged. But the search for Isabella didn't find anything of her, and the Coast Guard also didn't find anything in the water that could have caused the damage, which then caused the boat to take on water and submerge.
So they couldn't see what they hit?
No. at this point, they were like, well, we've not found
That's
anything.
strange.
Very strange. So 3 days later, on the 18th of May, sadly, the search was called off for Isabella. You know, they did search as much as they could. They couldn't find her. So once Lewis was back home in Delray Beach, he was interviewed again by the police. So he told them that their trip had began in St. Martin. They had travelled to Puerto Rico and some other islands before arriving in Cuba. And the day before the accident, the couple had been in Veradero in Cuba, and then they left around 5:30 p.m. to head to either Key West or Fort Lauderdale. So Lewis said before he headed off to bed, he'd set the autopilot on a course heading towards Florida. As he'd said before, he left Isabella obviously top deck, and she was keeping an eye on things while he got some rest, and obviously told her to wake him up if she needed him.
Mm-hmm.
So they must have taken shifts, you know, like getting some sleep.
Yeah.
Whilst the other one would obviously just make sure that things were all right.
Understandable.
Which, yeah. So he said that the next thing he knew, he was awakened by a crash underneath. And Lewis then said that, as I said before, he went to the upper deck and Isabella was not there. And that's when he noticed that the boat was obviously taking on water. So he prepared to abandon the boat. So as I said before, it obviously wasn't sinking at a mega fast speed. As he said, it took him 45 minutes to gather his personal belongings and put them into a life raft. So in those 45 minutes, he was sorting...
Why was he not looking for his wife?
Exactly, because that's what I'm confused about. Like, well, why weren't you spending those 45 minutes trying to find your wife? Or...
And how much stuff have you got that takes 45 minutes?
Well, I'll tell you what he actually what he did actually take with him in a little while. That's sort of further down the line. But I just thought, is that what your priority is here? Like, you've obviously...
Well, that's what my first thought was.
Mm-hmm.
The priority should be finding your wife.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's obviously more on this in a minute, because it's still like really confusing. Why his thought was to gather his belongings and then just abandon the catamaran. So the FBI actually took over the investigation for Isabella's missing person case. They searched the couple's home as they were actually looking for any indication that maybe this wasn't just a tragic accident. You know, was there something more sinister going on here? They did find a few red flags. So the first one, and the one that's most obvious to me, was that Lewis was an experienced sailor. So why didn't he make any attempts to find the source of where the water was coming in from and try to stop the boat from taking on more water? Because as I said to you, it wasn't enough water that the boat was sinking rapidly.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it was taking on water.
But it could have been like maybe patched up.
Well, exactly. But I said, I mean, he was experienced in this. So why was he not trying to figure that out and go, right, I'll secure the boat? You know, why did he feel the need to abandon ship? And like almost instantly.
Without trying
to source it. So that for me, that's a huge red flag. He obviously was asked what efforts that he made to search for his wife, which again I was thinking the same. Like when I told you that he spent 45 minutes, I said gathering his stuff. Why wasn't he looking for her? He admitted that he didn't do anything. He didn't fire any flares to light up the water, because obviously she could have been in the water surrounding at this point.
It would have been dark.
Yeah, so why didn't he fire up a flare?
And then he would have
to
lit
cool
up.
Sort of see. He also said that he hadn't shouted or called her name. Why would you not have done that? Surely in the first instance you'd be going, Isabella, you know, where are you? Are you okay? You know, because she might have been somewhere where she maybe was injured from if she had fallen over, but she could have maybe been able to shout out.
But why would he admit that?
I don't know.
Like, why, you know, if he didn't and there was a reason why he didn't, why would he admit that? Why would he not say that? Of course I shouted out for her.
Because he also admitted that he didn't search the area surrounding the boat to see if she'd fallen in, so he didn't look for her at all. He just didn't look. Didn't look for her. Didn't try to find her. Didn't try to see where she'd gone. I don't get that.
But I don't get that. But again, I don't get why he's admitting that. It would be easy for him to say, of course I looked for her. Yeah. Of course I was shouting out for her.
Because I mean, there's
nobody to say that
didn't happen. Yeah. But no, he admitted that he hadn't.
That's weird.
So like I said, obviously he'd gathered up his belongings and got into this life raft. So once he was aboard the life raft, he actually cut the line that attached it to the boat. And he said that he did that because he was afraid that the boat would sink him. But according to the Coast Guard and the a catamaran design person, like somebody that designs a catamaran.
A catamaran design person.
Okay. They said that she would have been, like, the boat would have been very seaworthy, and given Lewis's experience, it should have been able to stay afloat had he followed very basic flooding procedures. So, you know, he should have known that she wasn't going to sink if he had, and he should have been experienced enough to follow the procedures to stop the boat from actually, you know, sinking as it was. And as I said earlier, search teams did not locate any hazards in the water whilst they were searching for Isabella. Despite days of searching, the teams that were searching could not find any object that could have struck the boat.
Now that's very strange.
So now Lewis's version of events were looking a bit shaky.
Yeah.
His story was just, well, holes were appealing all over it. And
Yeah.
just, like, you know, like, they didn't add up, basically. So Lewis also asked that the Coast Guard provide a letter of presumed death for Isabella. Because guess what?
Life insurance.
He would have been entitled to her estate or any life insurance policies she may have had. But the Coast Guard refused to do it. And they actually, well, to be fair, they refused to do it, but they didn't have the authority to do it, apparently, as well.
Right.
But that was 3 days after the accident, so Lewis...
Oh, come on, 3 days.
I mean, obviously, he wasn't hoping that she was going to be found. Like, because to me, I'm thinking, I know 3 days, it probably is a long time in the terms of, like, a sea tragedy. But...
you would, I mean, you probably would assume that 3 days, as, you know, she's gone. But
you still have a bit of hope, wouldn't you?
I mean, like, to us, to, you know, 3 days. But if that was me and that was my husband, of course I'd still have hope. I'm like, well, they haven't found his body, so there's to me there's still hope.
There's still hope. You wouldn't be thinking about getting a letter of presumed death, would you? Why would you want to? You wouldn't want to admit that to me. Like, I wouldn't want to admit that that's what's happened at that point.
I don't think so. Not just 3 days afterwards. No.
So I think, you know, there's another red flag.
Yeah.
So here's another one. So the following day, Lewis had booked 2 one-way tickets to the UK for himself and his daughter Amelia.
Oh.
Because obviously, bear in mind, he's from the UK.
He's from the UK, yeah.
So Amelia had actually been getting, like I told you earlier, she'd been getting looked after by Isabella's mum and sisters, but he wanted to take her to his parents in the UK. And Lewis had accused, he'd also accused the police and Isabella's family of taking things from the condo that he shared with Isabella. And it was actually an exchange, which I was also on a police, you know, camera, like obviously the police.
The body cam.
Yeah. That you saw. So I'm assuming he was obviously having a disagreement with her family, and the police must have been called, or they were there. So he was having Lewis and one of Isabella's family members, which I actually think was one of her sisters. It's caught him on camera, and he was asking for her to return the stuff. That apparently, like, he thinks that they had taken, but she's obviously adamant that she hasn't taken anything.
Do you know what kind
I
of
think
stuff?
It was like maybe like a laptop. Oh no, was it like an iPad, laptops? It was like stuff that just, I don't know specifically everything, but I think there were a couple of things that were mentioned. So that, of course, made things turn a bit ugly, and of course, you know, when he came to pick Amelia up, the Hellman's family, they obviously feared that they wouldn't see Amelia again. And they were basically saying, you know, you've killed our daughter, our sister. You know, they were accusing, because they think at this point that he's done it.
Right.
He's killed her. So they were obviously saying, you know, you've killed her. You know, we don't want you to take our granddaughter, niece away.
But was he planning? Oh, because you said one way, didn't you? So obviously he was planning on living back in the UK.
Well,
so basically, you can understand why they're thinking that, because basically, your wife has gone missing. 3 days later, you're wanting a certificate of death. And then you're booking a one-way ticket to take your child back to
the UK.
The UK. So to me, that's you've killed her and you're fleeing the country.
I would say so. Yeah. So Lewis did take Amelia to the UK, and that was around the 28th of May. So this is, bear in mind, this is only a couple of weeks after, about 10 days after, like, the actual things happened. So he first took her to England, where his parents live, and then on to Scotland, where his sister actually lives. And he didn't really keep the Hellmans up to date with his plans. Like, he just sort of took her and just like,
that's not fair.
No, exactly. So of course, whilst they did that, the FBI's investigation was still ongoing. So they had began examining items that the Coast Guard retrieved from the life raft. So Lewis had 2 backpacks and a suitcase that he had put in the life raft.
The stuff that he'd been gathering up for 45 minutes.
So apparently Lewis had taken one of the backpacks with him when he was, because obviously when he was rescued, he was winched up from to a helicopter.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he'd obviously had one backpack on him and he'd left the rest of the belongings in the life raft. So the rescuer that obviously was getting him up in the helicopter said that he noticed that the bag that Lewis had was very, very heavy. But that backpack wasn't searched, whereas the other stuff was. So whatever he had in his backpack on him,
we don't know.
We don't know.
I want to know what's heavy.
Yeah, but in the raft that Lewis had the suitcase and the backpacks, he also had a parachute, flares, buoys, 14 gallons of water, a jar of peanut butter, and a secondary emergency position beacon, a tea set.
A tea set?
Uh-huh.
What, like if you were going to have tea with the Queen?
I guess so, yeah. Cuban trinkets and 9 plastic tubes wrapped with clear tape containing silver coins. They were collectible coins that were worth about $4,200.
Right. Okay.
So that's what was in the raft.
So I'm assuming like the tea set and stuff like that must have been valuable then.
I'm assuming so.
Because
why
why
else would you get
are
it?
you going to be sitting having tea on a raft?
But I still think it's really terrible that he's gathered all that stuff up, but yet he's not bothered about his wife.
No, nothing's more valuable than your wife, your wife's life, is it?
Exactly. So they found another 162 coins in the condo, and they somehow realised that they had actually been stolen a year before from a sailing boat called the Kitty R, which was based in the Caribbean islands of St. Martin. Now, Lewis had been working as a crew member on the yacht at the time.
I was going to say, is he a pirate now?
I know, well, that's what it sounds like, eh? So he had actually filed a police report saying that the boat had been broken into while the owners were away. So that he was saying that the coins had been stolen.
Right.
Now, the owner actually identified the coins that were found in Lewis's condo as being the coins.
So he
that
stole
were
them
missing.
then.
So yes, I think he has stolen them. And there was also $220,000 in cash found in the back seat of Isabella's car, which the police assumed to have been gained from selling some of the coins already. So now investigators were pretty convinced that Isabella's disappearance was no accident.
Well, it sounds like this guy needs money.
Mm-hmm. They didn't have any proof on murder,
Mm-hmm.
but they did arrest and charge Lewis over transporting stolen coins.
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually given 7 months prison time
Right.
for that. So whilst he was obviously brought back over to the US to serve that time, Amelia stayed in the UK while he served his sentence. But again, through his lawyer, Lewis filed a request again for a presumptive death certificate for his wife. And obviously once that was legal, of course that would make him have access to all her assets.
Mm.
But this is what, again, I find crazy, is that Florida law states that a person should be missing for no less than 5 years before they can file for a presumptive death certificate. She had been missing for 5 months.
Wow.
So,
5 months.
So obviously, I mean, why would I don't know why his lawyer would actually allow him to file that, considering he obviously would know that. So the FBI obviously saw this as more circumstantial evidence that Lewis probably murdered Isabella. As we said earlier, you would think that he would still have hope that she was still alive.
Yeah.
So to me that screams red flag murder,
Yeah.
you know, totally. So thankfully the judge, which as I said, if it is Florida, you know, law, the judge refused to make that declaration at the time. Apparently Lewis's lawyer actually said that he would probably need the support of Isabella's family to overturn the ruling, but they weren't ready to believe that she was gone, obviously, because it'd only been 5 months, so they weren't going to say, of course.
And I'm not being funny, but why should they be supporting him when he basically just took their niece, their granddaughter, whatever, you know.
Exactly. So he was never going to get their support on
No, and they've been having arguments about he's accusing them of taking stuff and all that. So they're obviously not on good terms.
No. And of course, it's perfectly normal to still want to have hope, even though yes, I know it's now been 5 months, and I know that the probability of her being found alive is very, very slim and worse.
And they probably know that as well.
Know that, but you're not ready to officially let that be the case. I mean,
I said earlier, I just think that if there's no body, then there's always going to be that little bit of hope.
I think you've always got hope. You're not ready to make things official, like to accept that that's the case now. Of course not.
And how, you know, like, I mean, it has happened before in real life and in the movies and whatnot. Somebody ends up on a desert island somewhere. You know, like as I said, you're going to have that hope.
Case that, I mean, I know this is not the same, but you know that case with the canoe man where he was presumed dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously
he'd faked it,
and he was alive somewhere. So that's probably why, you know, they have these laws in place where you don't declare somebody dead.
Yeah, of
for
course.
a certain amount of years, because there are extreme circumstances where they might still be found alive. So yeah, so of course he was never going to get that.
Yeah.
And during the investigation, it was learned that Lewis did not activate his satellite phone and register his personal locator beacon until he was in Cuba in mid-May. So I'm assuming that must be, if you're at sea, you obviously must have to activate things so that if anything was to go wrong, people would know where you are, etc. Because you're obviously on a boat.
Yeah.
So he didn't activate that until mid-May, and by that time the couple had already travelled from St. Martin to Puerto Rico and to Cuba early in the month. So why did Lewis wait until the final leg of their trip to activate them?
Yeah, why was it not activated right from the start?
Yeah, but apparently the most likely answer that basically the reason he did activate it eventually was to ensure his own rescue and survival after murdering his wife and wrecking his boat, because obviously he would want people to know where he was. But they clearly didn't want anybody to know where he was and lead up.
I mean, that's what I was thinking, but I was thinking what was his excuse for not doing it?
Exactly, but he didn't obviously give.
We don't know that.
No. But the wreckage, like I said, it was recovered and examined, and disturbing conclusions about what had occurred were found. So they found that there was holes made to the hull of the boat, and they were likely to have came from inside the boat and not on the outside. So obviously, if it had been from if it struck something, it would have been on the outside.
Of course.
But for now, and it did not show any markings that you would likely expect if it had encountered an object in the water. And also, there was 2 holes in nearly the same position on both hulls. A catamaran's got like 2 hulls.
Right.
I don't know if you know what it's, because it's like a big sort of boat.
I know what a catamaran looks like.
Yeah, so there's like 2 big hulls like on either side. So basically, there was 2 identical holes on the same position, and they were too neat as well to be caused by natural damage.
And if they were caused from the inside?
That's what they say, yeah.
Right.
They were caused from the inside. And also, obviously there's escape hatches that are sort of below the water. And they seem to have been opened below, because they're below the waterline. And they should obviously never be opened while the boat is in water unless somebody is actively escaping through them, because the hatches would cause the water to enter and flood the cabin.
Yeah, of course.
So the FBI concluded that the catamaran did not sink from natural damage and couldn't think of anything that would cause similar holes in both hulls, and it should have been salvageable. So even if they had these holes in the hull, Lewis, being an experienced sailor, should have been able to stop that from being submerged in the water. So, and obviously it was the opening of the hatches that caused the boat to flood. So somebody had obviously opened those hatches with the intention of trying to flood it. It was clearly staged. That's what, it was a clearly staged thing. So Lewis Bennett was charged with 2nd-degree murder while he was still serving his 7-month sentence. And it was found that Isabella had actually told her family that they had been arguing about finances and parenting. So removing Isabella would mean that basically he could live his life as he pleased and inherit a lot of money.
And have the child to himself.
And they also think that maybe she could have found out about the coins, which would make her an accomplice, because obviously when they were out sailing and stuff, I think they obviously got more coins because there was coins found in the raft. So that would make her an accomplice. So she may have found out about that, and obviously they argued about that once they were at sea, because she obviously, well, you'd think maybe she wasn't happy about the fact that she's now realised that he's stolen coins and selling them and stuff. So that could have maybe led to an argument and maybe led to him killing her whilst they were out at sea. So in November 2018, Lewis Bennett reached an agreement to plead guilty to the manslaughter for the death of his wife. So he was given the maximum sentence allowed, which was 8 years. As part of his deal, he gave up his right to any of his wife's belongings, and all the money would go into a trust fund for Amelia.
Oh, that's
only
good.
3 by this point, which is so sad, because basically she's kind of lost her
both her parents.
So Isabella's family, they actually did file to get a death certificate so that they could sell her condo and place the money in trust for Amelia. And as far as I know, Amelia remained with his side of the family.
All right. Well, I hope her side of the family still got to have contact with her.
Well, as far as I know, they did have video contact and visits were arranged, but I don't know, there was quite a lot of uproar about the fact that she was allowed to stay with his family whilst he was in prison. I mean, I don't know what do you think about that? I mean, do you think she should have been with her family?
I don't think it wasn't, they didn't have anything to do with it.
No, exactly. I mean,
so if they're his was it his parents or his sister or whoever it was that she's staying with, I don't see why she would have to be with her mother's side. I think you have to do what's best for the child. I mean, I don't know what's best for the child because I don't know we don't know the family. So
I don't know the family situation, but
so I don't see why there should be an uproar about that. I don't see why they should miss out on their granddaughter because he's done something wrong.
No, I agree. It's just a shame that they live in different countries.
Yeah, I know, it's hard.
More complicated and more harder. But what do you think? Do you think it was a tragedy or do you think it was
No, I don't even know why you're asking me that.
Yes, I mean, I think he definitely planned to kill her. Whether it was spontaneous on the trip.
I don't think it was spontaneous. I think it was planned because the thing with the location, we're not activating his location until the last leg. Yeah. And I think, well, why not?
Yeah. Unless it was to do with him getting the coins, they didn't want anybody to know where they had.
Oh well, yeah.
Maybe side of it, and because she maybe found out about it.
But the thing is, like, what happened though? Like, I get that he has made the holes.
Yeah.
So we get that, but what happened? Like, where's her body? Like, and did he kill her
before
and then maybe threw her overboard, or did he leave her to drown? Like,
is that because we don't know if she had a life jacket on? I mean, he said she did. I mean, that's the thing, we don't know how.
Because if he managed to survive, why didn't she manage to survive? If it was a case of what he's saying, which obviously it's not because there's no evidence of them hitting something.
No.
But if they had hit something, well, why didn't she survive?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
he did.
Exactly. So to me, I think he maybe killed her and then chucked her overboard. Because I mean,
where's her body though?
Obviously drowned.
Well, obviously, but I mean, surely they must have. Well, I suppose it's.
I don't know. I mean. And unless he ever tells exactly what happened to her, then I don't think we're obviously never going to know.
Is there proof that she was on the boat at all at that point?
Well, I know obviously the satellite phone was used to phone the day before it happened, so she obviously
was on it then. And had they stopped before? No, but then see, this is my thinking, my opinion only. So she's phoned them. So she was definitely on the boat. But that doesn't mean to say that she was on the boat when this happened.
True.
So that maybe is the reason why they haven't found her body, is because she's actually where they were the day before.
Yeah, we only know that she used the satellite phone the day before they went missing on the boat. So she was definitely on the boat the day before. But between that phone call and the distress call that he made,
she could be anywhere.
She could be anywhere.
She could be anywhere.
She might not have been on the boat at all. He might have actually killed her, left her somewhere, sailed the boat, made the accident happen, made the distress call, or was she on the boat the whole time, and then he's done whatever he's done with her going overboard or whatever, and then Let's say, but unless he speaks and tells,
we're not going to know.
We're not going to know.
But I think there's a good chance that she wasn't on the boat
I never thought about
where
that.
he was.
Yeah.
I think whatever's happened
Like
to her
maybe
has happened before.
He's carried on sailing a bit away.
Because so that they won't find her body.
I never thought about that actually, yeah.
Because if he has actually murdered her and then thrown her overboard, then if they find her body, there's going to be evidence
of what's happened
to her.
Yeah.
So he didn't want them finding her body.
Yeah.
So obviously he's going to say, well, she's drowned. They're going to look for her in that area.
Yeah.
So do it
Well,
beforehand.
that's true, because they could easily look, even if she had drowned there, they could have, the technology these days, they could look under the water and find
That's
her
what
body.
I mean. I don't think she's in that area then. I think she's somewhere
I
else.
thought of it like that, actually, yeah. You could be right. But as I said, we're never
going to know unless he talks,
unless
which
he
I doubt
talks.
very much he's going to.
It doesn't sound like it, but I mean, I hate this, if he wants to have a relationship with his daughter, maybe surely he owes her an explanation of really what happened.
Yeah, but he's probably just going to tell her the same as he's told everybody else.
Yeah, true.
Because if he tells her the truth, that's not going to help him in any way, because she's definitely not going to want a relationship with him.
Well, that's
and
true.
she will report that to the authorities and whatnot, wouldn't she? I would assume.
I know. It's a very, very sad case, and obviously
It's
I feel
awful.
for Amelia. What a shame. At the time of it, she was only 3 years old, and she's lost her mum and dad in
And
a
her
sense,
dad,
really,
yeah.
because especially if she's in the UK, being brought up by his family, then she's not going to be seen, because obviously he's in America serving his time. So, but then he's got. I said he was only given 8 years, so he will be out in a few years potentially. So
I wonder how that's going to go.
Yeah.
With the access and stuff, will he be allowed to see her?
I don't know. I mean, there's nothing to, unless anything's put in place, but I guess Isabella's family would have to try and put some kind of injunction in place for that to happen, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that could be or not, but yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
If you would like to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter and Instagram, which is crime_divers_pod. We are also on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, which is Crime Divers Podcast.
If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us on crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. And if you would like to support the show, we have Buy Me a Coffee, so that's buymeacoffee.com/CrimeDivers, and you can make a one-off donation. And we also have Patreon, which is patreon.com/CrimeDivers. We have 3 tiers, which are £1, £3 and £5, and you get your bonus content, early access to episodes, ad-free episodes, and obviously that will be in your own currency, whichever country you live in.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate and review.